real thing. Ooh.
Oh, it's higher than I remember.
So, yeah, now, I've not driven this before. I've only driven this now for an hour, mostly on the motorway. So I'm not going to, I haven't assessed the performance envelope, as it were. But so far, and I know you have driven it, and you've driven it on a track.
I've only driven it on a track.
Right.
When I say a track, I mean not a circuit, like a private roadish.
A proving ground.
Yes, proving ground.
Proving grounds.
Yeah.
Things may be proved.
Yeah. It's where Paul Hollywood takes all of his dough.
No, that's a leavening ground. Isn't
Sorry.
I've just so far I think it's quite civilised, and also on first impressions, having listened to a few people, including our mutual friend Chris Monkey Harris off of the television, who was ranting on at me ages ago when he'd driven this about how it was just a BMW and it felt like a BMW.
Yeah.
Which had kind of pre-primed my brain to expect it to feel like a BMW because Chris Monkey Harris knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take issue with him on this because I don't think it does feel as much like a BMW as I thought. And I think psychologically you're conned into thinking, well, it is a BMW because look, here is a BMW air conditioning control system.
This BMW boring line of buttons.
Yeah.
That's
not though, is it? I don't know. That's they've just invented that. This is a BMW screen, is it?
That's BMW. That is BMW.
But a different shape to the last one I used in a BMW.
I think
it's almost like they've done it specially.
But what annoys me... Well, where do we start? Okay.
Well, where do we start with things that annoy you?
Well, this car's a complicated one for my brain. I love the outside of it.
Do you?
I really think that it looks...
Oh, we're not going to do this because look, there's shenanigans ahead. I was
Full
about to
kick down.
No, I flicked it. It.
Did you? You paddled it?
Paddled it.
Is that another Corsa van? We're being surrounded. I was going to say to you, we've picked a daring day for a Supra.
It's damp.
It is so cold. It's like 5 degrees today, and it's really, really skiddy. On the way to meeting up with you, 2 cars in a hedge.
Really?
Yeah, I had to stop and check if the guy was all right.
Really? Oh
yeah. Full like Yaris took out an entire gate out of the ground round the back roads.
Yeah, this is probably not hot rear-wheel drive car weather, but you know,
I love a challenge.
Yeah.
So this is the bit. I'm going to start with the exterior.
You like the exterior? I like it more. I've only ever seen one of these on the road. They've been out for a little bit, haven't they? And I've only ever seen one. It was going the other way, and I kind of went, still looks a bit cartoony to me. Not sure, but now I've looked at this a little bit more.
Yeah. It's pleasantly Japanese in that way. It's creative. The back end, when you look at the back end from a side profile or a rear 3/4, which is probably its best angle actually, got that lovely ducktail. The lights sculpt into the bumper, and they come out, and then there's loads of little the haunches that I'm looking at in the side mirror. They're mega.
Yeah, haunches.
And then you open the boot and you go, what sort of a boot aperture is that? I mean, it's
quite shapely.
It looks like an egg timer, or a 50s pin-up lady.
Yes, a curvaceous 50s lady is probably the design inspiration, but I don't know. It's got that high loading lip that What Car Magazine was used to complain about in the 80s. Obviously that's for body stiffness, isn't it? Because it is a hatchback.
Yeah.
To put some rigidity back into the shell.
I read how stiff this was. Stiffer than an LFA Lexus.
Stiffer than an LFA?
Yeah.
Wow.
The things that really cocked my ears. Stiffer than an LFA.
Yeah.
Shorter wheelbase than a GT86. Shorter car than a GT86.
Interesting.
And you're like, what? So the car that it's better than and it's more expensive than, it's smaller than. Which seems odd, right? Because normally you'd think because this is the flagship Toyota, and the old Supra was very bulbous.
Yeah, but that's the point, I suppose, isn't it? They've not just gone, well, it must be bigger because it's the big brother to another car.
Yeah.
They've sort of made it as big as it needs to be in its own right, I would guess.
How do you feel about the growing, and it is ever-growing, legend of the Mark IV Supra?
Well, I remember when they were new, because I was a kid reading car magazines. Not even a kid. When was that car out? 90?
93?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it stopped in 97.
Well, I remember all the car magazines saying it was basically toss at the time. I don't get where this... Well, I sort of get where it's come from. It's kind of Fast and Furious as part of it, isn't it? 'Cause that
It's
car
come from non-standard.
featured in that, yeah. And, I mean, actually, it's not the hero car of Fast and Furious in the same way that Dom's Charger might be considered an icon of those movies. But, yeah, it features in a Fast and Furious film.
I think...
But they were considered to be a bit sort of bloaty and,
Yeah.
you know, American dentists' cars in the way that the Nissan Z car got a bit
Yeah.
flabby and silly and pointless.
See, at the time, so yeah, they finished in 97. My two big memories of Supra Mark IVs, when I was my first journalism job, when I lived in Chester, and I lodged in a house with a woman whose boss had a TVR and used to occasionally pick her up and take her to work. I don't know if he was trying it on with her, never asked.
Almost certainly.
But he's driving a TVR, he's obviously a bit of a cad. But I remember the day when he turned up in a Supra, because he traded in the TVR for, it must have been one of the very last
Interesting.
Supras, and I didn't know whether to be impressed or not. I didn't know whether that was a backward step. And now I think he'd just got bored of bits falling off him.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if he'd spec'd it right, but let's just say he bought a manual limited slip diff Supra.
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying they were flabby and pointless, but I've never driven one, so maybe in fact in the right spec there, because you could have them you'd have an auto, couldn't you? And I always think, oh god, I bet they were
A lot of them were
rancid.
autos, and
Yeah.
there was a game. I remember there was a PC game called Need for Speed,
Yes.
and I think it featured pretty heavily in the Need for Speed. And that's the thing. I think the folklore around Supras probably is for younger people than us.
Yes.
Because I was working at Max Power when the Fast and Furious thing kicked off in a really big way.
Oh god,
So
you
I-
must have had your gut full of modified
Oh,
Supras in
yeah.
Max days.
I've been. I remember
They're not-
driving a 5, which is not massive numbers now. I remember driving a 550 horsepower automatic Supra,
Oh, God.
and when you kicked it down, it almost threw its tyres off. let alone sort of. It just sort of. It was hilarious. But my second memory of Supras is that when I joined Max Power, they'd already done, maybe a year or two previous, they'd done the infamous 200 miles an hour on the A1 with Smokey Nagata from Top Secret, the non-stop.
Smokey Nagata.
His name is Smokey. Well, I mean, his sort of like theatrical name.
Whoa, is this a junction?
I don't-
Sorry, I thought it was a roundabout. I'm gonna get out of here.
Look at you, Doc.
That's a bit embarrassing.
You, Paul
I honestly
Walker,
thought that was a roundabout.
Richard Walker,
Yeah.
driving around in second, ringing it out in second, around a housing
We're
estate.
back in auto, and I go to just
So
drive away from
Smokey Nagata brought over the Top Secret Gold Supra, which I think at the time might not have been 1,000 horsepower, but it was big power.
Yeah.
And non-stop smoking, brought it over and did 200 miles an hour on the A1, pre-social media. Max Power videoed it all. It caused a massive commotion, and he got deported.
What?
He got deported, the car got impounded, and then the car eventually got sent back to Japan.
Oh my god.
And remember, this is all before the days of I mean, even the web. I mean, the Max Power website was around. There was a big chat room, but
Yeah.
they put probably was a video, not even a DVD, that you could buy of 200 miles.
VHS.
200 miles an hour on the A1. He went through the Hatfield Tunnel.
This was presumably in the middle of the night, not like.
This was in the middle of the night
3 in the
because
afternoon.
he's Top Secret were part of the Midnight Club, I think.
Okay.
The original Midnight Club.
There's an RX-7.
Oh.
Speaking of Japanese things, that looks really original as
It
well.
looks really good,
and the original wheels and everything.
that, funny enough, and that's in red like this. The back end has some similar shapes.
Yeah.
And that really,
Soft,
really strange
organic.
lozenge rear light cluster, which this has got
Where
some.
the merry frig are we, by the way? I
Get down Chaucer Way.
Let's go down here, but I want to get out.
That's what I like about. That's what I like about your little mystery tours.
Not knowing where I'm going.
It's like it's like going on a coach tour with old people. Don't know where you're going.
We're going into a little estate that's not going to get us free from wherever the hell we are.
But this is what happens in all of the Fast and Furious films. They get trapped in a very, very normal.
Can we just pause the heist here while we drive around the 1960s estate?
It's a lot of Pebble Dash.
It's a lot of Pebble Dash.
Isn't it?
Oh, for fuck's sake, this is just a dead end.
That person hasn't mown their lawn in years.
Shitting biscuits.
Well, Dominic Toretto.
Dominic Tourette's. Fuck wank, fucking
yeah, exactly.
Fuck.
Dominic Tourette's mid-car chase goes down a cul-de-sac.
And then just swears his head off.
But he does have a sleeveless denim top on, so it's okay. And that's where I think
with
you've gone wrong.
Balls written on the back.
In studs.
What do you want to have it to sound like? Wank balls! So, yeah, they deported
Smokey Nagata. They impounded the car and eventually it got back to Japan. But this was in the time of big tuning kicking off in a big way in the UK. All of the stuff that was going on in Japan had finally filtered to the UK, and it was breaking free from the sort of those in the know to the wider audience. And Max Power kind of blew it out to the wider audience. And I think that was pre-Fast and Furious, and Fast and Furious just acted as this massive catalyst for cars like the Supra, the R32 Skyline, and then the R33 and R34. So I've got a growing affinity towards the Mark IV Supra. I've always liked its bulbousness, I have. I've always disliked its predominant auto boxness, which this car can only be available in.
Yeah, no Manuel.
No three pedal.
If this wasn't the 30 zone, that corner is your classic. Just
understeer or oversteer.
Well, but either. See what happens. But it's that 8-speed ZF box that's in lots of things, including BMWs. Oh, what a giveaway! And it's really good.
It's really good, but this car should have had a manual option.
Well, imagine if it was an absolute toss manual. You know, it's like one of those old Tremec boxes out of a Mustang.
Okay, well, imagine if it was.
It adds like a second to the 0 to 60 time because the changes are so slow.
Yeah, but your heartbeat's 20 BPM higher because it's turning you on. If it was a shit manual, if it was a Nissan 350Z box, see, I loved that box.
Yeah, that was quite nice.
Or a Vauxhall Monaro box.
They were horrible.
Well, they're physical.
No, but not.
But you put
it's
a quick
good sports car gearbox. I mean, it's good.
Look, I would want. I think visually on the outside, the aesthetics are great. I love the Street Fighter 2 style font Supra badge on the back, which they've kept. I love that.
Isn't there also there was the badge from the old one, was it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is.
It's proper Street Fighter 2 era.
School, yeah.
And
very 90s.
Yeah, and I think the 90s is pleasantly far away from us now, where even a lot of people who dig the original Supras and that sort of stuff probably weren't alive then.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? They only know about the car from the legend rather than the reality. They've sort of seen them around when they were too young. They wouldn't have been born when it was. You never really saw them around that much in the UK anyway. I think they were quite big in the US, weren't they?
They were massive. I suspect they were priced differently.
Yeah.
So the weird thing about this car is that I think they've gone to town clothing the outside. They made a point about making it really, really stiff.
Yeah.
And making it as small as is necessary. Blatantly a 2-seater. There's a weird amount of space under there.
Yeah, that boot is.
It's just odd.
Although the aperture isn't very big, the boot itself is actually pretty large.
It's like a huge apartment with a very small front door.
Or it's like a house with a very small living room but a massive kitchen.
Yes.
Or even my old flat, the flat I used to live in, I used to rent in Dartmouth Park, that had a reasonably good sized living room and bedroom, but then of equal and unnecessary size, the bathroom. The bathroom was huge.
I had a huge bathroom in it.
No need, just no reason. They couldn't do anything with that space except wander around in it wrapped in a bath towel. It's just bizarre.
I had a bathroom in an average size semi-detached house, and it had a bathroom where you could honestly have a party. I never did have a party, but I loved it. I loved it for its ridiculousness, and I've said in our current house when we're doing it up, I actually want an unnecessarily large bathroom to remind me of those times.
But I found, certainly in my flat, thinking, well, what else could you do with this space? It wasn't quite big enough that you could sort of fence it off and make another room.
Yeah.
Because it was just all, the layout was wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like that with the boot here. It's like, you couldn't put 2 seats back there. I think that would be taking the piss.
Yeah, and 2 plus 2s
why
are
not
largely
just make
pointless,
it a nice
aren't they?
big boot, yeah.
And also, the body is nothing like the Z4, thank God, because the Z4 looks cack.
Doesn't it? I saw one on the way up here.
It looks rubbish.
It's awful.
And that's great. So it's almost like they've taken a Z4 to a carrosserie and just air chiseled off a body and gone, put another body on it.
Hasn't it? This has got a double bubble roof like Zagato.
Do you know what? When you were following me into the services,
yeah,
I checked the rear mirror and thought, wow, that looks amazing. And I was checking out the front bumper and those full length indicators and stuff. But the thing that really got me going was in the silhouette of the car. You really see that pronounced double bubble. Yeah, you really do.
It's a bit of bother with this car just because it's got, although it's nice and revvy, it's
you're
also
Dom
got that
Diesel.
Turbo-ness.
I'm Brian Walker. You're Dom Diesel. Yeah. So
Yeah.
for the rest of today,
What?
you have to be referred to as Dom Diesel.
I don't think that's either the character or the actor's
Well, it's
name.
half actor, half character.
Conflated the two. I've been around here before.
And I'm Brian Walker.
Confusingly not a roundabout.
Yes, everyone's already said it. You can find BMW badges all over it. And
yeah, but you can.
And I know it's made in Austria, and I know all that.
That's a good bit of trivia, isn't it? That this car, weirdly, this Japanese badged, secretly a bit German car, is made in Austria in the same factory as the Jaguar I-Pace.
Yeah. Which is weird. And the G-Wagon still made there?
Yeah.
So that's a weird cluster of cars, right?
Isn't it?
An I-Pace next to a G-Wagon next to a Supra.
I'd imagine that people who work on those production lines are sort of limited in their transferable skills, because one minute they're, delicately putting together aluminium electric cars. Could you just go and hammer together that stupid, overweight, over-engineered off-roader thing? But the thing is, all this sort of malarkey about, it's not a real Toyota. It's like, people who say that are kind of car enthusiasts. And you go, when do you get excited about Toyotas anyway? What's such a big deal?
I think what it is because
they're good and exciting cars, and it's a good bit of people to get into bed with.
It's good that they've built the car, because they could have easily not built it. And the gestation period was about 14 years.
Yeah.
And when they brought the concept out at the Detroit show, I'm sure I was there. 2014, I think, was the concept of this. And everyone was like, great, build it. And to go from concept to reality seemed to take a lifetime. But externally love it. It's very Takeshi's Castle, very Street Fighter 2, very, Japanese. As soon as I got in here, when we were filming for Fifth Gear, my face dropped. And Plato's face dropped, just like, what are they doing? It's just all very linear. The outside is not linear at all.
Yes, that's true.
So if you're a stickler for design language flowing from outside to in,
I love a flowing design language, as you know.
There is no flow. There's no flow from outside to in.
No, that's a good point. But at the same time, it hadn't really occurred to me. I'm just going to needlessly, aggressively
You're just
behind this Q5 because
just ragging it.
I just like ragging it.
You like ragging it. You like ragging it when it's really slimy and cold outside, don't you?
It's okay. It feels, actually, that's one of the things. It feels like it's got, I'm not going to say this in a faint, tempting sort of way, but it feels like it's got quite a lot of grip.
Yeah,
even
please.
in these damp conditions.
Actually, from the passenger side, the back end feels very secure.
I thought it would feel a little more twitchy because it's quite short wheelbase. Very short wheelbase, really.
It is very short wheelbase.
As you pointed out, shorter than a GT86. So, and it's a bit more stable than all that. It's not flighty.
The thing about the GT86 is it's an affordable car that I'm really glad they made. But what I got upset with Toyota about with the GT86 is that they picked an engine partner who built what I would describe these days as average engines. And so you partnered up with Subaru and you couldn't be asked to even think about putting a turbo on it. You idiots. Nobody ever buys a non-turbo Subaru and is pleased with it. They always go, well, they don't. Because all of the cool Subarus have got snails on. They always have. So you've gone and dropped the ball there. Although it's a really controllable, fun, and it's quirky. The GT86, I like that. It's always been underpowered. It's always needed heavy tuning. This one, they're aware of the fact they had to build a Supra to satisfy the fan base. And bearing in mind, most of the chats about Supras revolves around the 2JZ engine. And what haven't Toyota done? They haven't built their own engine. What are Toyota really good at?
Because they can't. Because they just can't. It's too expensive. There's no way on earth they could sign off a brand new engine for a low volume car.
But you could have got Gazoo Racing to have put a new head on it.
Well,
they could have CNC machined a completely bespoke head.
BMW engine.
Yes, so a straight 6 block, but they put their own Gazoo Racing head on it.
Why? This is a really good engine. What's the point?
Because it's not unique enough to satisfy JDM warriors.
It is a really good engine.
It's a really good engine, and everything I've driven it in is great. But I would have liked a manual option, which is a lot cheaper than re-engineering an engine. So I would have.
Yes,
you
because
just phone
BMW have connected this engine to a manual gearbox.
Yeah, so. What is it, an M2? Can you buy an M2 in a manual?
Possible, yeah.
So if you put an M2 3-pedal setup in this, it wouldn't have cost that much, and it would have been brilliant. So there's that.
It gets a strop on. It really does.
That's great.
We're going quickly.
I really like the creases in the bumper.
Oh my goodness.
I really like the bonnet creases. Look, you're making all of the drinks lean a bit.
No, it really. So you can feel the shortness of the wheelbase because it does. It changes direction quite neatly, quite obediently.
It does sound great. So
look at this. Now we're driving down here, and I'm enjoying the fact I've got paddles here.
Because you can go in quicker and
just ping it up.
I've always liked this box, and I like this engine, but I think the Supra name is so sacred.
It's not sacred though.
It is.
They
sacred.
were mostly rubbish. I think we've got into a bit of a lather about it being sacred, and I'm sorry, but nah.
Well,
just not. And I think this car can be whatever it wants to be, and it wants to be a bit of a lunatic, actually.
It begs the question.
Drive fast.
It begs the question. It's going to put the value of a Mark IV Supra up even more, and they've gone a bit silly actually.
Have they?
Yeah. For one that's still got the horrible soft line 5 spokes and everything. They are shit wheels. They're like McLaren F1 wheels. They look crap. I don't care what people say. I know they're correct for the era, but they do look crap. But like Toyota's intentionally just kept this all reined in so that they can support all of the cottage industry tuning market.
Well, now that's something that's interesting about this, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the scope they have deliberately left in it for modification.
Yeah.
Did you tell me about the front air intake?
Well, the front air intake has got a recess in it, a crease in it, and that crease follows the strut tops, and there are mounting points for triangulated strut braces on both front corners. And Toyota have gone, we could have put some strut braces in there, and people went, well, so why didn't you? And they went, well, we're leaving that for the tuning market. And they went,
I think I read something where the chief engineer went, actually, we tried braces and it made it a bit too stiff for what we wanted. Because the ride's not bad in this, actually. No, I think they've sort of gone crazy race spec.
I like the ride.
Too jiggly.
I think this is a well-judged ride, actually. It's really good.
Yeah.
Even on a pretty horribly greasy, bumpy, narrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If the ride on those roads had been really stiff, you wouldn't have been able to strop along so much because you'd have been fearing it was going to get kicked out of line.
Yeah.
And actually, it soaks up stuff.
Doesn't it?
It gives you a bit more confidence. I do wonder.
And I like being in it. I like other people looking at it. You know, we're not going to lie. People buy cars like this because they want a bit of escape. They want a bit of uniqueness. If you buy this car, the money's similar to like an Alpine, isn't it? And you're not going to buy an Alpine because you want to blend in. Because if you wanted to blend in, you would have bought a Cayman. You bought a Cayman in grey.
Here is, and this leads me to something I was thinking about this car before I drove it, is why would you buy one of these when your options are Alpine, which is, as we know, absolutely fantastic.
Alpine's
and is
fantastic.
its own car, you know, sort of feels like its own car with its own personality.
It's more unique, it's more unusual.
And the Cayman is in reach, and if you just want a car that is incredibly well engineered and nice to drive, they are still bloody great, aren't they? Every time I drive a Cayman, or a Boxster for that matter, I sort of find myself going, oh dear,
Richard,
shoot the bed.
you've basically just driven it through a field in the last 10 seconds.
But yeah, so every time I drive a Cayman, you sort of go, oh, I forgot how good these are. They really are.
The Cayman is an amazing reference point for how sharp a car can be.
But without being exhausting.
Without being exhausting.
Just perfectly set up to be sporty and sharp when you need it to be, but without wearing you out when you're just driving through town or trying to take it easy on a motorway or something. But
the Alpine is for someone that shuns the commonness of the Cayman. Listen to us, we sound like a right pair of
flutes.
We do sound like a right pair of flutes.
No, but see, the thing is, I also thought 50-ish grand. You could have second-hand Porsche 911, 991 shape.
Bloody hell, yeah.
Which is not to be sniffed at.
Yeah.
And you could have a really lovely F-Type for that, if you want a rear-wheel drive car with a 6-cylinder or even a V8, if you're so fancy.
You could get a second-hand V8 F-Type.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's sort of knocking 30, so you could get a really good one for 50.
Right.
And that is a car with a definite personality all of its own.
Oh my gosh, I've been out in winter weather in a V8 F-Type and I have been busy at the wheel.
Yes.
I have been busy at the wheel.
Yeah,
it was
I'm
great.
not sure, just when we had a little strop down that main road there, in this slightly slithery weather.
Slightly slithery.
I'm not sure I would have been driving an F-Type like that at that point. Or indeed now down here, because they're really wide, aren't they? And yet, I really like them.
Yeah.
Really like F-Types.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. There's a lot of other stuff you could have for 50 grand. And I thought that before I drove this, and now I've driven it, and I do like it as a car.
Yeah.
I think after a brief acquaintance, yes, it's good. I've no qualms with it in its own right.
How much do you want one?
Yeah, how much do I want one compared to the other things that I could have? Because I do want an Alpine. I drove an Alpine again quite recently, and I took it up to the Peak District, and I had one of those drives.
Yeah.
Sunday morning, weather like this, crystal clear blue skies.
Yeah. Cold but clear.
Cold but clear, and it was quite early. I had the place to myself.
Did it feel powerful enough?
Yes.
Because a few people, again, they haven't gone wild on the power of this car, and they've almost left it there for everyone who buys it to presumably tune it. It's almost like Toyota has assumed that no one will keep this car standard. It's just weird.
Yeah, which is the chats they must have had with the warranty department about that.
Yeah.
So what, you're encouraging people to mess with it.
Yeah.
You know that if something goes wrong, they'll take all the shit off and come back to us and try and make it our fault.
Yeah.
No, they won't. We know Supra people. They're our people.
Yeah.
They'll be fine. Are you sure?
It's the total opposite to the attitude when the R35 GTR was launched.
Yeah.
Do you remember? And they went, this car is unmodifiable.
Yeah.
We've made the engine unmodifiable. It's powerful enough. Nobody's going to want more power. Nobody's ever going to touch it. Full stop. And within about 6 months, people in Japan were like, are you sure about that? Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure that dude down the road you know, has got 700 horse out of it, and he's hemorrhaged 3 transaxles with it. And
it's a lot of red stuff drips out of it when he comes to a rest.
yeah,
But it's fine.
It smells like cat piss. I think that might be the diff. Go that way. Go that way.
Go that way?
Well, go country. Don't want to
Is
go on
that
big
country?
roads. See,
But where?
does this beg the question? Is Gazoo Racing going to open up an e-shop imminently?
An e-shop, or like an Etsy shop?
Yeah, Gazoo's going to have an Etsy shop, and it's going to say, right, do you remember that thing we said about...
A really nice
do you remember when we said
Yes.
we've unnecessarily reinforced the tailgate in case you wanted to put a bird table on it? Right. You weren't happy with the ducktail? Right. Gazoo Racing, we've got a lovely carbon big fat wing on it. Just for you. Etsy e-shop, go. Oh, you know all these blank tin gills on the front for extra brake cooling? Don't worry, we've got some carbon fibre, lovely funnelled cooling ducts. You can buy them from Gazoo Racing's Etsy shop. Done.
I really like the fact that this is not the only car in the world with fake ducts on it. Lots of cars have fake ducts, but the difference with this one is Toyota went, oh yeah, no, fine, you can prize out the things.
Yeah.
They're real ducts behind them, we just didn't need them
Yeah.
for cooling in this state of tune, but
Yeah.
they will function as ducts if you just put some mesh in them, and it's like, well, that kind of shuts up the fakery things. They really are blanks. They're like switch blanks in an old Cavalier.
Yeah, they are.
So, I mean, this is the thing, to sum up, I'm enjoying this car. I do feel like I might, if I kept driving like this on a day like this every day for a while, I would probably end up having an accident, but that's my fault, not the car's. It's nice. It's not as aggressively sporty as I thought, but it's sporty enough. The ride's good. It drives okay. It's good.
I'm looking
I
forward.
don't think I want it.
I'm looking forward to seeing loads of really ultra enthusiastic owners modifying them ridiculously, and then having some warranty issues, and then just seeing the conversations that unravel on forums and on social media.
So much of that, won't
Because I'm a bit of a car tinkerer, and if I was to buy one of these, knowing what Toyota have said about, oh yeah, well we've got some pre-drilled holes ready for those strut braces. And
Yeah.
we've already got this for that. I'd actually think, oh well, basically Toyota's saying you can't leave it standard because only a dick would leave it standard. So
It's weird, isn't it? They are saying that. They're saying.
Yeah, they're going to...
We haven't put all the effort into this because we assume you'll finish the job. But you see, I'm not a car tinkerer because I perhaps naively believe that large corporations with enormous budgets probably are going to do a better job.
But in this
Some
instance,
bloke in a workshop
No.
on his own.
are they going to take this car to BMW tuners or Japanese tuners? Is there going to be a marriage of communities of JDM and
Coming
Munich?
together.
Yeah, and Munich legend warriors. That could be good. It could be like the Bloods and the Crips joining forces.
Yeah.
What's your favourite aspect of it?
The engine.
Is it?
I think the engine's terrific, and it feels a little bit revier than I remember it feeling in BMWs, and the whole car feels a little less. You know, a lot of those modern M cars, they feel like they've been made deliberately heavy feeling. Do you know what I mean? Heavy steering, really thick. Psychologically, just the fact that this has got a good-sized rim.
Yeah.
And not one of those absolutely ridiculous, like you're trying
silly.
to grapple a Trans-Siberian gas pipeline to steer the car.
Yeah, it does.
Can't abide that.
One
Why
of
do
those.
BMW keep doing that?
Because the test drivers must have enormous hands.
I think they do.
There's no other explanation.
Well, there's that
It's-
story about when they were doing the Rolls-Royce Phantom. The test drivers kept asking if they could have a thicker steering wheel, and the Rolls-Royce designers went, no, certainly not. No one's going to go around the Nürburgring in it.
I don't know anybody that likes a really thick steering wheel.
No, there's an
Because
optimum
most people,
thickness, isn't
I don't have small hands. You have bigger hands than me. But those BMW M steering wheels, it's like grabbing hold of one of those traditional sausage draft excluders that old people have under the door and making it into a circle.
Yeah, they're just no
What's it
good
all
at
about?
And this, just the fact that it has a sensible steering wheel, immediately
This is
makes
really,
it feel.
the back end of this car is really, really grippy. It's really planted, it's staying.
Yeah.
Do you get the impression that the rear track is narrower than the front track? It feels like the car is that shape.
like a Citroen DS.
Yeah, it really does. Don't get it stuck, Rich.
I can't get it
Please
stuck.
don't
That'll
get
be
it stuck.
Extremely embarrassing because I would get a
I'll
powerful rear wheel
I'll have to
drive
use the
car out.
floor mats to get it out of that very shallow ditch.
Yeah, the engine's great. I think.
I want a more vocal exhaust. I want a Gazoo Racing head. I want a smaller sport button. That's
I just
absolutely
realised it's very big, and I realise I've been hooning it around in non-sport because I tried it briefly before, and it does make the steering, I think, a little heavier.
It cackles the exhaust, I think. Do you get cackle? This should have been Japanesey.
I like the instruments though. I mean, those are emphatically like nothing in any BMW, and I quite like.
That's the only thing they've done, Rich. That's a BMW. That's a BMW. That's a BMW. That's a BMW.
Well,
that's a BMW.
Yeah, but I don't care. I don't care in as much as BMW stuff is fine. It doesn't make a toss of difference to how the car drives. True. If they make their own switches or not. So
you have to look at this on a daily basis, and that bores me. That's boring.
Well, yeah, but what's Toyota, that well-known maker of interesting interiors?
No, but if you're gonna
let's get some perspective on what Toyota are like in their everyday business.
If you're gonna do it. If you're gonna do it right. Look at me, you're just trying to pick the worst roads in Britain.
This is dear.
I forgot to say to you, look, I'm going to show you something. Look what I'm wearing today.
Oh.
I dug it out and I thought, today's the day. I'm going to wear my 2000 GT Blueprint t-shirt because I'm an idiot.
But that raises a good point. The people who will generally get annoyed it doesn't have a Toyota engine, doesn't have a Toyota bespoke interior, are people who know their history and know about the 2000 GT and know about previous Supras and things like that.
Yeah.
Does that matter? Because those people alone will not justify this car's existence, since most of them are just car nerds who won't buy one. They're like people who bitch about the new Defender but won't buy one.
Yeah.
Yet, conversely, this is clearly an enthusiast car.
I love this engine, but I would want it to be a little bit more special. I'd want it to have more power than a Z4, and I'd want it to have at least have had a bit of Gazoo headwork or a Gazoo snail on it. Something
sure
that
they'll sell you one eventually. I mean,
well, they better. Listen, if Gazoo are out there, they need to write me a letter. Does anybody write letters? I love the wheels, but if I was going to buy one, because I'd be a Supra warrior, I'd have to overpay for some very, very odd looking forged wheels.
Why?
Because it's not about the look, it's about how I like they are. So I just have to. Yeah, I would. And I don't even care about Fast and Furious. And I still would do that.
And that's I don't know. I think that's the problem with this car. It's too bogged down in the past in a funny kind of way.
Does it have too much baggage?
There's too much baggage. The Alpine, although oddly it's a retro-ish design, is not bogged down.
That's because everybody who remembers the original's dead.
It's not busy gazing at its own belly button, and I think that this is not necessarily all Toyota's fault. I think a lot of it is the people who were very interested in it and in its predecessors are a bit too. It is Defender syndrome or New Mini syndrome.
It actually doesn't matter what you think and what I think, because if he's still alive, it's what Smokey Nagata thinks. What does Smokey Nagata think of this car?
Well, we're not far from the A1. Why don't you invite him over and see if he wants to drive it at an insane speed for... I'm guessing this is limited to 155 though, isn't it? Because
it probably is.
Genes and all that.
And also, I wonder if Smokey Nagata, because that was some time ago when smoking was pretty common and maybe cool. Is Smokey Nagata now more vapey?
Clouds of weird, dry-smelling steam Nagata.
Yeah. Vapey Nagata, he's massive. It's just plumes of butterscotch-scented smoke everywhere. Not smoke, steam, whatever it is.
I mean, do you want one of these?
What is it, 53 grand, 52
Something
grand?
Like that, yeah.
I mean, it's a difficult choice because it's a chunk of money and there's a lot of competition out there, and they're all very different. I really like an Alpine, and I love seeing people choosing an Alpine over a Porsche or an M car. Would I buy an Alpine? No.
Would you not?
No. Do you know why?
I think I would.
Because I would want it to be manual. And I'm sorry, but if I buy an Alpine, it's a special occasion reward vehicle, and I want a 3-pedal reward vehicle.
Do you?
Well, we live in a world of increased auto, and I like autos in certain circumstances. But I want the engagement. I think that the Alpine with 3 pedals would have been glorious, and I think this as a manual would have just been sensational, and they could have done it.
I'm afraid, when all's said and done, I don't agree with you about the manual. I think this is fine with the thing. I mean, I'd love to try a manual one. I think it'd be a really interesting car in its own right, but I don't think that this auto is great. And it gives you the option to stick it in automatic and just cruise around town, which I'll be honest, I'm too old and lazy now not to think that's a good idea. But ultimately, on this brief acquaintance so far, and probably in a couple of days' time I'll totally change my mind, but so far I feel like I'm going to have to file this in that folder, quite a big folder of perfectly good cars that I somehow don't want particularly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie awake going, what if I traded in some other things that I own, which I did with the Alpine.
Do I want to own one? No, I think if I owned one, I'd say I'd disappear down forum wormholes.
Before you know it,
and
I'd spent 20 grand making it slightly worse.
I'd be that guy who's personally imported a set of 10 grand forged wheels that weigh as much as a packet of Walker's crisps on each corner. I'd be that guy, because I think that's how I'd get the ultimate enjoyment from it. And I might even have a Tokyo underground grab handle hanging off the towing eye at the back for full JDM Belendery.
As you're describing this, I'm thinking, not only do I not want to have one of these, but I don't want you to have one of these, because I think you're just going to make it a worse looking car, certainly. So that's settled then. Neither of us should or will have one of these.
Okay.